Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Working from Home. I work for a tech company that sells MacBooks, Chromebooks and other miscellaneous items to schools. There's a strict rule that we are not allowed to work from home under any circumstances, except on Thursdays and Fridays, and only if we don't have any meetings. Yesterday we received a batch of quotes from one of our distributors, and today's main task was to get all the SKUs and codes into our system for one of the big high-profile private schools. These codes came in extremely last minute, meaning we had just 6 working hours to process everything. I did what I could yesterday and let my manager know that the rest would have to be completed today due to the short notice. Today, the internet went down at the office. The quote, valued at around $1.5 million, was due in 2 hours. And honestly, I might have considered using my phone's hotspot to get it done, if they paid more than the bare minimum and actually provided a phone allowance. My previous pay evaluations were all rejected. And considering I contribute to deals worth millions with solid profit margins, you'd think there would be at least some kind of commission. If only I could go home to use my working internet, or if they covered even $5 to $10 a month for my phone bill, so I could hotspot, but no. The next story is called Ask Every Customer. About 30 years ago, I was working at a New England convenience store and deli chain, which no longer exists. At the time I was handling multiple responsibilities: stocking shelves, ringing up customers, working the deli, and even acting as assistant manager. But I didn't have the title or the pay, just all the extra responsibility of doing inventory and placing orders. One day I was failed by a secret shopper for not asking if they wanted anything from behind the counter. Things like tobacco, lottery tickets, or various high theft health and beauty items. My boss sat me down and said I had to offer every single customer something from behind the counter. No exceptions. They didn't care what I offered, as long as I did it. I said, no problem, and went back to work while my boss retreated to the office. My very next customer was a local priest buying bread. As I rang him up, I asked if he was all set. He said he was. I then followed up, completely straight-faced, and asked, "Are you sure you don't need any lottery tickets or maybe some gum?" I figured if one didn't bring good luck, maybe the other would. He turned bright red, quickly paid, and left in a hurry. From the office, my boss immediately shouted that I was now exempt from having to push items from behind the counter. I knew I was never going to get fired. I was doing way too much above my pay grade, while trying to make a good impression. But at least I got out of one extra task. The third story is called Manager in Trouble. This was during 2009. I had just graduated and couldn't find a teaching job anywhere near me. So I took a paraprofessional job, essentially a teaching assistant role, but with more focus on working with kids, rather than just doing paperwork. Unfortunately, it didn't pay enough. So I also started waitressing at a banquet hotel. I often found myself working 7 days a week, sometimes for months without a break. I told the manager that there were certain days I needed off, but he never listened. I also told him multiple times that I needed rest, but he still didn't take it seriously. No surprise. I eventually developed bronchitis. When I told him, his response was that I shouldn't be serving food to people, which seemed reasonable. I even had a doctor's note saying I shouldn't work, but instead of accepting it, he told me I had to come in anyway. So I did. It just so happened that on that exact day, the hotel manager and the owner did a surprise inspection. They heard me cough and asked what was going on. I told them I had bronchitis. They asked why I was at work, and I told them the truth, including showing them the text from my manager, saying I still had to come in. The next thing I knew, Both my manager and I were pulled into an office. I was sent home immediately and ordered not to come back for 2 weeks. My manager, on the other hand, was officially written up for not following health regulations. 2 weeks later, I quit. On my last day, my manager actually had the nerve to ask me to come in the next day, because they were going to be swamped. Now, if he had asked a week before, I might have said yes, but on my last day, absolutely not. I never went back. The next story is called Can't Use It. Back in the 1980s, candidates put in a lot of effort meeting people to win votes. They would visit schools, in between shaking hands at factory entrances and attending Rotary luncheons. A colleague of mine was in the middle of teaching when a minor candidate, who also happened to be the governor of a state, walked into his classroom and said, "Excuse me, I need to use your phone." My colleague responded, "I'm in the middle of class and you can't use that phone." The governor looked a little shocked, and there was a brief standoff, until an assistant superintendent from the central office stepped in and said, "It will only be a minute." My friend then asked, "Do you need privacy?" The governor nodded. "Okay, class is over," my friend announced, looking directly at the administrator. "Head on down to the cafeteria and we'll just have a study hall, since this call is more important than my class." As the students filed out, the governor picked up the phone and waited and waited. Then he finally asked, "How do I get an outside line?" "You can't," my colleague said. "It's an internal phone." Then he simply walked out, taking a well-earned little break. The last story is called Bank Compliance. For the 100th day of school, my son's school asked the kids to bring in 100 of the same coin. They were planning to donate the money to our local food pantry, which I thought was a great cause. Since we were doing pretty well this month, I decided to give him 100 quarters, $25, to donate. So during my lunch break, I headed to the bank. I walked in, got directed to one of the tellers, and politely told her that I needed to withdraw $25 in quarters. She nodded, went to get my quarters, and came back with 3 rolls of quarters. "I can only do $20 or $30, she said. "They only come in rolls of 10. I noticed she had a tray of loose change, so I asked, "Could you take 5 from the loose quarters?" "No," she replied. "They only come in rolls of $10. Do you want 20 or 30? At this point, I really needed 25, so I just went with 30. She processed my request at another window and returned with 3 rolls of quarters. That's when I said, "Can I go ahead and make a deposit?" "Of course. How much would you like to deposit?" $5 in quarters. The range of emotions that crossed her face as I cracked open one of the rolls and started counting out $5 in quarters was priceless. She took the quarters and told the guy at the other computer that we needed to deposit $5 in quarters back into the account. He looked confused and asked, "Wait, what happened?" She explained, "They asked for 25, but the rolls only come in $10. That's when he asked her, "Why didn't you just count out $5 in loose quarters from the tray?" I just smiled as I waited for my deposit receipt. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.